welcome back to the podcast. My name is Haley.
Hi, I'm Galia.
Today we are going to be talking about Miller's Girl. What year was this movie released, actually?
I think it's pretty new.
Like maybe 2 years ago?
Newer than that, I think.
Oh, really? Oh, maybe it was last year. It was an independent film, I know that.
2024.
Wow. So it was this year. That's crazy.
I know, she doesn't seem to get older.
No, I know. Yes, this movie stars Jenna Ortega and Martin Freeman.
Yeah,
I believe it was originally premiered at, I'll have to look up the, was it Cannes Film Festival, maybe?
Was it?
I believe it was. I am almost positive. Maybe not. Maybe I was wrong. I don't know why I thought that it debuted at a film festival for some reason.
It feels very indie, doesn't it?
It was. It was Palm Springs Film Festival on January 11th of this year. And then it did have a theatrical release later in January of this year.
It does give off, that indie film festival vibe.
It does, yeah.
But yeah, so we're obviously this episode is going to contain spoilers. I just feel like we should do a bit of a disclaimer here. If you haven't seen the movie yet, just go watch it and then come back to the episode because we're gonna give all its secrets away.
Now, this movie is considered an erotic thriller. I would also probably put it slightly in the dark academia category. It does have the vibe, for sure.
100%, yeah.
Definitely.
So what was your initial impression with the movie, even before we watched it? Like when you have you Googled it before we actually went into it?
No, but you had told me the premise of it, I believe, a little bit. Okay, so I haven't read the book My Dark Vanessa, but I was getting the feeling that it was going to be in the same the same vibe as that book. From what I've read about, like I said, I haven't read that book yet, but what I've heard about it kind of seems similar, although they do have different, so that book seems to be more focused on the victim, whereas this movie was definitely, I almost feel like they were kind of villainizing Jenna Ortega's character a bit at the end.
It's interesting that you're mentioning My Dark Vanessa because I've read it, and first of all, I don't think that it's worth the read at all. I think that the only good thing to take from that book is that it portrayed well the long-term consequences of such a relationship, and essentially the suffering of the victim and how long she carried, the scars of it. But great. But except for that piece, I honestly don't think that it was necessary to write this book, and it was quite long as well, and it's just I don't know. It started off interesting enough, but then I finished it. I saw it all the way through, and so many references to Lolita, and it's just so just unnecessary and just not great. But that's all like I said, I haven't read the book, but I know that's about a student-teacher relationship too, so that's kind of, going into this movie, I had a feeling maybe they'd be similar, and they definitely, I mean, like I said, they're not really. I'm gonna say this. I definitely think that in this movie, Jenna is, or Cairo, that's the character's name. She is the villain. If you can, or she is the one carrying most of the blame, I guess. As opposed to My Dark Vanessa, where this girl was definitely a victim.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so
that is my biggest gripe with the movie. I did really like the movie. The costume design was chef's kiss.
Yeah, I really liked it, and the way that showed the because it really did contribute to the plot. You see you see the character's motives, even, you know, it manifests in her wardrobe.
Yeah, and we'll get into that later in the podcast, because I have things to say about that. But
so let's talk about the opening scene. She says, I put down that quote, "What is an adult? Becoming one didn't suddenly transform me into anything outstanding or significant. I am 18 and entirely unremarkable." And that really, you know, even that first quote really struck a chord with me. The combination of being completely insignificant and yet wanting to make a difference leaves some sort of stamp on the world. Is it something that resonated with you?
Yeah, I remember turning 18 and thinking, I haven't done anything. And, like, obviously, you're only 18, you have your whole life ahead of you, but I don't know, it was almost like a crisis that I had, where I felt like I had... Well, at the time, I really felt like I had no direction either. So I'm like, what am I doing with my life at this time? But it's something, like, looking back at, like, that feels so silly in retrospect that I had those feelings, and I was only an 18-year-old.
I feel like her state of mind and, like, the way that she thinks is something that I find relatable even now. So what does it say about me? Does it mean that I'm still stuck at 18 years old? Or because it's almost like this weird contradiction between, I feel like I am outstanding in a sense that I just don't really, it's hard for me to relate to people in my society. So in that sense, I am not like everyone else. But at the same time, I feel so minuscule and just, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it feels like no matter what I'll do in this life, it's never going to, you know, make an impact forever. Yeah.
You have to think you're just one of, 7 billion people on this planet.
Yeah, so it's kind of, you know, it's a contradiction almost.
Like, you feel like you should be doing something remarkable, but you're just not.
Yeah. Exactly. And you have that tiny nihilistic voice in your head saying, what does it matter? You know, we're food for the worms anyway. Yeah. So, should we talk about their first interaction? Because that was also, I thought it was something else, because, you know, she walks into class, right? Like 1 hour ahead of time, and he's already there, and he's like, what are you doing here? And Cairo comes off so confident, sharp, well prepared. He comments about the list of books for the entire semester or whatever, and she's like, yeah, I've already read them all. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, very sharp contrast to how 18-year-olds actually are in real life for the most part, or at least a good majority of them.
I know, that's another thing. Funnily, that's the next thing that I wanted to mention, is that in this movie verse, all of the characters except for Cairo's friend Winnie are book readers. So already, you know, at least for me, like, I probably know one person in my real life who reads books. Yeah. And this person does not read, you know, books. He reads like shitty, you know, gay romance bullshit.
I would argue that Winnie's definitely more street smart as opposed to book smart. At least she thinks she is, but that's also something that we'll touch on in a bit, where she thinks that she knows more about certain topics than she actually does. Interesting. I thought that just like I'll touch on that in your next paragraph here on the notes.
Okay, so moving on to Winnie's monologue about losing her virginity to someone experienced shows that most people don't actually know what they want. They want someone more experienced to tell them what they want, or to kind of guide them.
Yep. And I was also, that ties back into my last point, that it seems like maybe she thinks that she knows so much about sex and losing her virginity, but it seems like almost she's just parroting what she's heard other people say about it.
Winnie, you mean?
Yeah, Winnie.
Well, obviously she didn't experience it. Yeah. So
right.
yeah, I can definitely see why. It seems like, yeah, she's just, rehearsing stuff that she's heard.
Exactly.
But I do feel, like a lot of the it's kind of like when people read books and then they take. Funnily, I just had a similar conversation with someone pretty recently about how book people often have this arrogance that they're like, oh, I know all about it because I read the book. And, for example, like if you're reading about a political conflict halfway across the world or a situation, someplace that is so far removed from your culture and whatnot, you have no idea. And just because you read the book, it doesn't equal,
like firsthand experience.
Exactly. The experience of it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that. And
something also that I've noticed, like even at my job, we deal with like a lot of it is helping people choose like makeup colors that look good with like their skin tone, or like what, like giving people advice or whatever. And some people come in and they just want, like, I could tell them like something and they just, they have to ask every single person, oh, does this look good on me? Does this look good on me? Like they don't. Yeah. They want just the reassurance from somebody who they think knows what they're talking about. They don't want to try to make the decision for what they want on their own. They just want the feedback of everybody around them.
Yeah. I've never been that kind of person, so it's really hard for me to relate to that. I was always the sort of person, when I go out, so I already know what I'm gonna wear. Like even if I do, usually it doesn't happen, but even if I deliberate and like I can't decide, then maybe I will narrow it down to like 2 options, and then I don't know, ask my mom or something. But but I'm always very, I don't know, just self-assured. I
can't imagine going through my whole life just needing reassurance for every single thing that I do, everything I wear, every like hairstyle, every makeup choice. You need because somebody's feedback on it, because you can't make a decision on your own.
Exactly. How do you get shit done if like you're always needing someone else's validation? But yeah, with Winnie specifically, I do feel like a lot of teenagers, maybe this is a Gen Z thing, but I think this also, okay, so I would like to mention this, but briefly, because obviously it can expand potentially into a huge debate. But I was asking my friend this, it's a bit random, but I was thinking about it and asking him, if we're taking, so boomers, millennials, which is, us, and then Gen Z, out of all the 3, who do you think has the most critical thinking? And he said that he thought that it was boomers, and I said that I disagree. I said that I think that millennials have the most critical thinking, and my reasoning was that boomers, when you see them right now, like navigating the internet and their cell phones and whatnot, everything that they see, they think it's Bible, they think it's the truth. They can see AI stuff, and they won't be able to tell the difference between that and, reality. Yep. Or like Photoshop and shit like that. And Zoomers, they were born into it. So they have no idea what reality looked like before the internet, before smartphones. So they just have no reference to something else, or like a sense. I feel like they don't have a sense of normalcy. The normalcy that they know is right now, and right now is not normal. Like we live in a society of strangers. We live in, people use technology as a weapon. It alienates us from each other. It's doing the complete opposite, I think, right now. But with us millennials, we were kind
of born on like the cusp of where the internet was becoming like a major thing. Yeah,
we're with one leg in each, we're like basically on the border of it. So we invented the internet. We lived through its, infancy, I guess you would say, and like we watched it develop into what it is now. Yeah. So we kind of had both worlds. So I feel like when we see something online, then there's definitely like a warning in our warning going off in our heads, like thinking, what is this? Where is this coming from? Should I believe this? And with Zoomers, like, it's not just that. They have that arrogance that they see something on TikTok and they think it's Bible. They think it's true. It's kind of like I read the book, so I know what's going on. I understand this, through and through because I read the book or whatever. Yeah,
and it's kind of scary how much misinformation gets spread that way, too.
Exactly. And, conviction is a very dangerous thing. It can be a very dangerous thing, especially when you don't know what you're talking about. And I do feel like a lot of Zoomers, they're just very confident about things that they shouldn't be that confident about.
You say something with enough conviction and people will believe you.
Exactly, yeah. You tell the lie so many times it becomes the truth. It's really scary.
Yeah.
So, just circling back to Winnie, it does feel like she is, just reciting things that she's heard, but doesn't really... Also doesn't really... understand the implications of what if she is gonna pursue something with the coach, like the consequences of something like that. I mean, come on.
I had to remind myself that these characters were 18. They definitely act well first of all, it kind of reinforces the idea that like just because you're 18 and you're legally an adult doesn't mean that your brain is fully developed. For sure.
That is so true. But I do feel like sometimes they were coming off very mature, but other times, they would kind of remind you that they are barely legal.
I actually thought before I was looking up the movie again after we had watched it, I actually thought that they were younger than 18. I thought that they were like 16 or 17.
I thought
not that a few years really matters.
Juniors or seniors.
Yeah. I thought maybe they could be slightly younger, and I don't know. Maybe that's how. I feel like if she were below 18, this movie would probably have been a lot more controversial.
I think that it already, it was somewhat controversial because because of the age gap. Because I think that Jenna is. She is legal in real life, but...
she's in her 20s.
Yeah, but the age gap between those, like, 20 years or something, so people, were massively criticizing their sexual scenes.
Yeah, see, I hadn't heard anything about the movie, so I wasn't sure if there was a controversy or not, but I feel like if she was below 18, it probably would have blown up a lot more.
Oh, yeah, they would have probably, shunned it.
Riots.
Yeah, but another thing is that, interestingly enough, because when I think about the appearance of Winnie, like just the way that she looks versus Jenna, Jenna has that more of a... She just looks less developed, I guess, because she is petite and, small breasts and whatnot. And Winnie's more like curvaceous, and she looks more feminine, like older maybe.
Yeah.
Just body-wise.
I mean, Jenna Ortega definitely gets typecast as high schoolers, not just Wednesday. I feel like, was she in something else recently too, where she played like a younger character? I feel like
I only saw her in Wednesday, and I saw her in the latest Scream.
Okay.
But yeah, when I first watched Miller's Girl, as soon as it ended, I was like, okay, so I see that she can only play one type of character.
Yeah.
But. Which is not fair. I do think that she is a good actress, but maybe she just didn't have that many opportunities yet.
That's what I was thinking. She was in Beetlejuice, but I don't know how old she technically is supposed to be in Beetlejuice. I don't know if she's like a kid in that movie, but yeah. I just feel like she does fit that role, and she plays it well. I'll give her that.
Yeah, but I would like to see something else,
I would definitely like to see something else from her, for sure.
But yeah, anyways, so... After Mr. Miller reads Cairo's assignment back to her, the piece about the eat and accept that someday you will be eaten because that's the nature of life. Cairo reads to him from his book, From Memory. This feels like a declaration of equality in romance and intellect. And then she tells him, you're uninspired. Later in the same scene, to me, that's where she decides, that's the moment, that's the turning point where she decides that she's going to fuck with him.
Yeah.
So, thoughts about that, about her assignment?
I mean, I can definitely see where you're coming from with that point about how she's putting them, or at least she feels like she's putting them on like an equal playing field.
Yeah, I think that by that point, I mean, what do you think was her first impression of him?
I don't really think that it wasn't one of those like love at first sight moments. I'm guessing she probably saw him as a teacher like strictly first. I don't think she really went in with any romantic intentions. It seems like that's the scene where they go to the poetry reading, I think, was like, she clearly had some interest in him before that, but like that is definitely the scene that solidified it. But yeah. I doubt she like went in wanting to pursue her teacher. That's not the vibe I got.
I tend to agree there was more of a slow burn.
Mm-hmm.
But first of all, when she handed that assignment in, there's something very deep and brutal about it.
Yeah.
I definitely didn't think in these, on that scale when I was her age. But I think because she has read his book before she actually met him in class,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I think that it might have something to do with control. Because when you know that you're about to meet someone and there's something to be gained from them, or you know that they're going to impact your world, your career, your whatever in some aspect, you want to know as much as possible about them.
Yeah.
I'm talking, strictly from my point of view and INTJ's point of view, because she is, her character is an INTJ, so kind of just trying to make sense of what she's doing.
Yeah.
So maybe by that point, she didn't really, I feel like once they were talking about the assignment, that's where she kind of decided, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to harness him, use him, and ultimately, I think that we'll get to it by the end of it all, but I think that she used him, but she also let him use her, because I do feel like she did him a huge favor by the end of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, just going back to what I started saying before.
I'm guessing, I mean, she read his book. I'm sure she went into the class with some preconceived notions of the guy, but I don't think that they were necessarily, her first thought was, I'm going to romantically pursue this guy. Like, no, clearly not.
Yeah, I agree. But I think that she just, she wanted to read his stuff to kind of get an idea of who the guy was.
Yeah, exactly.
And also because it gives you a sense of control, maybe a false one, but when you've been, because when you read something that someone wrote, you are in their head. Yeah. Right? So.
And it doesn't even necessarily mean that she was coming in on an equal playing field with him. She could have done that just to be, to have a step up from her peers as well. Like, she knows what this guy's all about. Like, she's going in with, like, a little bit of insight on who he is, and maybe not everybody in the class has read. Because I don't think his stuff was not, like, required reading or anything. I think she had just read it, right?
Yeah. It wasn't required. It wasn't in the list. But, so he read her assignment to her, and he just knew it by heart. And then she reads his work to him by heart. Yeah. And she didn't have to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But she was kind of showing her hand, but it was in order to kind of say, or at least that's how I felt, kind of say that, you know, you're not the only one with cool parlor tricks.
Yep. Because he, if I might be wrong about this, does he not say that he has like a photographic memory in the movie?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
I guess she doesn't, but she's probably read his stuff enough to memorize it.
Yeah.
So when she says you're uninspired, I think that at this point she decided that she's going to.
Honestly, reading his own stuff back to him, what a power move.
I know. It's such a BDE moment. Yeah. So, moving on to the restaurant scene when Mrs. Miller offends her husband, telling him he's not a writer. That was brutal.
Keep in mind his wife is like the kind of domineering.
I know.
Like I think she's an ENTJ. Like she kind of gives big dick energy too, actually.
Pegging energy. But oh my god, she was. What did you think?
You're not
about
wrong.
Her?
I love characters like that, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, I don't necessarily like them in real life, but in media, yeah, I like them.
I think that I didn't like her because obviously she's very unhealthy. Mm-hmm. You know, if there was a better balance between her work and her marriage and like in the marriage, then I would have liked her more, but then again we wouldn't have the plot.
I was saying, I know her role was there as the plot device for sure.
Yeah.
Like
if they had a happy marriage, I don't think it would have escalated that.
No, and it wouldn't have been as exciting, of a movie if she had been the loving, demure wife figure. Instead, she's kind of, you know, very distracted. Like she kind of picks on him a bit, you know.
She is a bit of a bully. She's just out of balance, really, because she constantly chooses, you know, her work and her coworker, like editor or whatever she is, over her marriage, and there's no. She doesn't. There's no boundary to it as well, because she tells him, you know, ultimately after she screwed him over so many times, she tells him, okay, we're going to go away on this weekend. And then she gets the call and, you know, suddenly they are, I don't remember if they ended up actually going on that weekend, but they were late. You know, she just not a woman of her word, basically.
Like I said, these types in real life, obviously, you're not gonna get along with, but she filled her role in the movie well, and also she was. I don't know. I like characters that are like that. Sometimes they're very fun.
the thing about their marriage that really that made sense to me the most in terms of like the reality of things is that I can definitely see how someone like her would be attracted to someone like him and vice versa, because he is definitely more of a subby he's compared to her.
Yeah, exactly.
And she's very, you know, she's a go-getter.
Yeah, he almost seems like he needs that, like somebody to push him like that. Yeah. Well, not push him, but like, you know what I mean.
That's interesting that you say that, because she wasn't pushing him, but just imagine what would have happened if she would.
If she was, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I could see the relationship being a lot more healthy if, like you said, if she wasn't so distracted by other things, and also if she did, you know, push him to better himself and to write and fulfill his, like, you know, what he wants with his career.
Yeah.
I think, it would have been a good match, but clearly that's not the case in this movie.
I think that another thing that I was thinking about is that at the beginning of the movie, I think that he found himself, he was in a very comfortable position where it was just drifting like a dead fish.
Yeah.
And then she came along, and as soon as she said, you're uninspired, he, you know, he took a bite from the forbidden fruit. And suddenly, you know, there was this knowledge that this is not enough.
Yeah, because he does pick up writing again at the end of the movie after everything is said and done.
And that's exactly what I mean by saying that she did him a huge favor.
Yeah.
And you know, once he realized that he is miserable. You know, it's that moment in the Garden of Eden, that realization. And what gave him another push is when his wife told him, "Oh, you're not a writer," at the diner. So it's, you're uninspired, and then you're not a writer, and then things are starting, the wheels on his brain are starting to turn.
It's not important to the plot, but I would just be curious to know what their relationship was like when they first were married, or like when they first were together. If maybe they did have that better dynamic, and then it just dissolved over time. I
can only imagine. I think that at first their opposite traits complemented, you know, each other, and that maybe, I think that maybe like they saw the best of each other. But I actually mentioned this later down in my notes, that the scene between them, you know, the great fight, because it's slowly, it's building, and then there's this huge, you know, she's drunk, and there's this big fight, and at that point you see their worst traits coming into play, and then you really see, like, you get the essence of, you know, how unhealthy this relationship is.
Yeah. The next point I'm very excited to talk about.
Yeah, okay. So, would you like to read it?
Yeah, it's the changing of Cairo's wardrobe. Her first outfit is very nondescript. She wears, like, a turtleneck. She wears, like, shorts. It's not sexy or anything. You can definitely tell. So, something that I noticed in the movie, now I might be wrong about this, but it seems like the use of color with her wardrobe was very, very good. She was wearing a lot of white when she was trying to seduce him.
Yeah.
At the poetry meeting, she's wearing white. When she kisses him at her house, she's wearing white. And then she definitely, like, you can tell when she's trying to seduce him or be, like, mysterious and seductive, then she's wearing all black. I thought that was, I mean, kind of on the nose, but still, it was a cool touch, I think.
I think that when she kisses him, or, like, when he's fat, I can't tell if it was reality or the fantasy in his mind, but she was wearing a velvet dress. I think it was champagne colored.
It was it was both reality and the scene where they kissed was reality, I'm pretty sure. The scene where they actually have sex was just a fantasy.
Yeah, so she was wearing a velvet dress, I think.
No, it was like a silk dress.
Silk, yeah, that's right.
It was like a white champagne, like an off-white kind of color.
So but always in dress. You know, it's very feminine.
Yeah, the one at the poetry meeting was very, very hyper feminine. But yeah, the fashion choices were excellent. From my personal opinion.
I agree, and you can see, you know, how, because when she first walks into class, she doesn't have any ulterior motive, I would call it.
And her outfit is very, like, doesn't stand out at all.
Yeah. So let's talk about the writers' meeting scene. I thought it was beautiful. There's this one part when they're both listening. They're sitting on this couch listening to a writer speak. He's this guy that, I don't remember exactly what Mr. Miller said about him, but he said that he knew him. I think it was an actor or whatever. So this actor is reading his poetry.
He was in Hamlet, I think is what it was, or something like that.
Yeah, so, and the camera is slowly zooming in on their faces, Mr. Miller and Cairo. And you can see the emotion in their eyes, on their faces, and kind of how they experience it and portray it differently. And at that moment, I really thought about INFJs versus INTJs, you know, and because there's something very powerful about this combo. Doesn't matter if I'm not a fan of it because I just don't feel like I can trust them. but there's just no denying that this is a very powerful combo. So yeah, I thought it was very interesting to see.
Yeah, I did notice that during that scene, he was very, his attention was very much captured by the guy reading the poetry, but she was looking more at him, I felt like, during that scene, to see his reaction. If I remember correctly.
I felt like she was experiencing the artist's work through Mr. Miller.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And
she was watching his reaction, engaging, from his reaction.
Yeah. It's so strange, but so good.
Yeah, it was really good.
Okay, so let's talk about Henry Miller, because I am definitely going to read the book featured in this movie. It's called Under the Roofs of Paris.
Mm-hmm. I did look into the author slightly. It seems like he writes... I haven't actually read any of his stuff at all, but he writes, it seems like it's almost like stream of conscious, erotica.
Really?
Yeah. It's stream of consciousness, explicit language, sex, surrealist, free association, and mysticism. Can't wait.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm going to have to check it out. Okay, so Mr. Miller's reaction to her assignment inspired by Henry Miller at that point, had he chosen to accept it, what do you think would have happened then? What do you think the relationship could have looked like from that point on? Because a part of me was kind of entertaining the thought that if he would have just accepted it, then maybe, just maybe, Cairo would have just gone, about her life as usual after that. You know what I mean?
Maybe. I feel like it probably would have played out similarly, where if he were to do something to step out of line, then she would have maybe came back and used the whole thing against him. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. I can kind of see it her accepting it and just going along. And them having, as normal of a relationship as you can have in that scenario. But I don't know. I haven't really decided.
I feel like a part of her just really wanted to trigger him by that point. Yeah. Because she wanted to stop coloring, within the lines, so to speak, at that point. But also, I do think that she thought that there was some real merit to the assignment. I also kind of have to think of her life up until that point too, where she's the whole thing, why she lives alone is because her parents are lawyers, I believe, and they travel all over the world, and they leave her alone. She was probably very lonely, and he was clearly favoriting her. I don't know if maybe she was just latching on to that favoritism. Who's to say? I don't know. We have to remember that there was a bigger game here that she was playing. But I do feel like specifically with the assignment, I think that she wanted to experiment with it. And I think that she knew it was going to trigger him. Yeah. So she
was pushing his boundaries a bit.
So maybe if he wasn't such a, drama queen about it, interestingly enough, that would have reverse psychologied her might have thrown her that curveball of oh my God, he's taking this with the stride. You know what I mean? He's not making a big deal out of it. Holy shit.
How did you feel about the scene towards the end of the movie where him and his wife were almost mocking her? Do you remember that scene? Where his wife's trying to...
When he tells his wife that so he goes back from that day of work and he said, I've had a hard day, and then he tells her about the assignment and she goes, oh, she's got a crush on you, blah, blah, that
no, part? I was thinking of the scene where she's trying to have sex with him and he's she's like, tell me about what she said. And
that
what she
that
wrote.
was
Yeah.
it. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, listen,
Yeah.
it's not funny. Like, it's making me uncomfortable.
Mm.
I think I actually mentioned this in my notes. Yeah. So let's see what I have here. Let's see. So, Cairo saw Miller exactly for who he was, and even though I don't think he was instantly sexually attracted to her, she manifested his attraction. Her writing became a self-fulfilling prophecy. So that's one thing. We'll go back to that. But the scene that you just referred to, Mrs. Miller's condescending tone when he tells her of his bad day and the inappropriate assignment, she reacts as if a young, attractive, intelligent woman cannot possibly express genuine interest in her husband and his writing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like, maybe she's diminished him.
Yeah.
And, just he is so taken for granted by this point that she's not even feeling like this girl might be a threat or that she might lose him in any,
Yeah. She comes across as very overconfident.
Yeah, and
in
like
their relationship.
Yeah, and it's not from a place of trusting him, it's from a place of taking him for granted, which is just sad. And it's also, this is exactly the opening that Cairo was using.
Yeah.
That's exactly the small window of opportunity that she managed to slip through. And then a poor thing, I thought that he was finally going to get some, and then Coach comes in the door and interrupts them. Unbelievable.
I do not feel bad for Mr. Miller at all in this movie. I'm sorry. I have no sympathy for a man who is... I have notes on this that I'll get to in a bit here. But.
All right, so let's get back to the note that I just read. Cairo saw the teacher exactly for who he was, and even though I don't think that he was instantly sexually attracted to her, she manifested his attraction. Her writing became a self-fulfilling prophecy. And this is interesting because I feel like, especially with introverts and maybe NI-DOMs, I think that because we live in our heads, then ideas can become reality very quickly.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about The Queen's Gambit. There was this scene in it. She sits with Benny. I think it was after she beat him for the first time and became the U.S. champion. They're sitting in the bar and he's drinking and he's just feeling really shitty because she beat him. And she, touches his hair or something. And then they talk about how he's going to train her so she can, go off to Russia and beat up, what's his name? Not beat up, and beat, what's his name?
I like the thought of her going to Russia just to beat this guy up, though.
I know. But, yeah, so, and then he goes, Benny tells her, she's saying, where am I going to sleep? And he's like, I've got a mattress. Okay, cool. And then he says, but I'm not going to sleep with you. We're not going to have sex. And as soon as he says that, he knows what he's doing, because when he said that, he planted the seed in her brain.
Oh, absolutely.
It's kind of like someone telling you, don't think about a pink elephant. Do not think about a pink elephant. And, if you're doing something like that to an introvert, an NI-DOM, it's just...
I mean, sometimes you almost just see it as a challenge at that point.
Yeah.
You're telling me not to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Now you want to do it.
And I think that maybe that's kind of what she did to Mr. Miller in a way. Because at first I don't think that he saw her as a potentially, romantic interest, sexual interest. None of that. But she lured him in slowly. And when, at first with her, the way that she read to him his work, and then she was writing all these sexual things. And I mean, he took her. The point of no return, for me was when he took her. His wife kicked him out. He went to the shed, or whatever it was, with her writing, and then he was jerking off to it. That is, that is the point of no return, because once you do something like that, the person is in your head. You know what I mean? Like, imprinted. Done.
Yeah. And then they immediately flipped to the scene where he's like, I can't accept this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the moment where she got real, I guess.
Yeah, I would say so. All right, you had some closing notes here about the end monologue.
Yeah, so should we say anything else about their fight? Mr. and Mrs. Miller's lashing out, drunk, and the blame game. She was telling him, you're a liar, blah, blah, blah. You are actually the villain. Like, you don't realize this, but you are the villain. And I don't remember what exactly he told her, but obviously he's had plenty of shit to say. Also, it's kind of interesting because she's an ENTJ and he is an INFJ, and you kind of see how feelers lash at thinkers and how thinkers lash at feelers, and like their weapons of choice. It's really interesting. So yeah, but I did write down that in this scene the couple is a depiction of their worst personality traits when they clash. Yeah, I thought that that was the big reveal.
It's the worst of the unhealthy versions of both of their types.
Yeah, and
definitely.
That's what made it very interesting.
Yeah. I will just add in that I do not think this marriage is salvageable.
I agree. I agree. I think there was so much damage done, and she's just not the right partner for him. Yeah. And I mean, ironically, our girl Cairo managed to do more for him in, what was it, like the length of a semester, or say it's a year. She managed to do, for him in a year more than his wife probably managed to do in 5 years? Yeah. 7 years, something like that, because I'm pretty sure they said how long he's not been writing.
Yeah. He just needs to work on himself, man. He needs to not rely on women to rehabilitate him.
For sure. Yeah, but I agree, but only, to a certain extent, because I feel like, obviously you're supposed to have personal responsibility for yourself, your goals, whatever you want to achieve in life, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's also essential to surround yourself with people that bring out the best in you.
Oh yeah, what are you like? I've heard people say you're like your personality essentially is like an amalgamation of the 5 closest people to you, or something like that.
Yeah, so. And Freud said that we are different people with different people. Like with one friend you're this way, with your parents you're this way. So, yeah, it's almost like Beth had to walk away from Baltic and just move on to Benny. Benny, our boy.
Oh, Benny.
I know.
We need to start a fan club.
Such great hair. Such great hair. Wow. So yeah, I'm gonna read Kyra's closing monologue back to her old wardrobe as well. So the closing scene, yeah, she's seen. We find out. Sorry, we just can't skip that. We have to mention that she decides she's going to testify against him for just inappropriate stuff. Do you think that they had sex?
No, I don't think they did.
Because I was reading online comments about the relationship, and someone said that it was hinted, so he thought that maybe they probably had sex, but it just wasn't
No, I think that if they had, he is obviously concerned that this is going to, like, ruin his life, but I think if they had sex, he would be a lot more concerned. I'm just not getting the vibe that he is, like, obviously he could get in major trouble, he could lose his teaching job, he could be, blacklisted, whatever, but I feel like if they had actually had sex and crossed that boundary, it would have been a million times worse for him. Yeah. I do believe the scene where they had sex was supposed to be just a fantasy. I do think they did kiss, though. I think that was real.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I tend to agree with you. I think that, I mean, there's something very, subtle about, because I read about the controversy of it all before I watched the movie. So I went into it thinking, oh my God, it's going to be so dirty. And it really wasn't. Like, most of it was just a lot of implying, and it was done very tastefully.
I will also say really quick, the scene where they have sex was a little too idealized and a little too perfect for it to seem like it was something that actually happened. That's when we were watching the movie, that's what the thought that I had.
What scene was it that he's bending her over the bed and she's reading to him?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think that it was staged that way to show us that it happened in writing, but not in real life.
Right. Exactly.
If it would have happened in real life, I feel like it wouldn't have been so perfect.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely agree. I don't think that they had sex. I think that he wanted it. I don't know. It's really interesting because I keep, thinking in my head that sometimes sometimes it's best, or maybe most of the time, it's best to leave fantasy as it is, not live it. Because once you live your fantasy, then first of all, you're asking yourself, okay, what's next? So I fulfilled this I crossed this out, so what am I going to cross out next? And also, often fantasy just the reality of it does not live up to the expectation.
Something I will point out quick before we do the ending portion is this movie actually got pretty bad reviews.
Really?
Yeah, it was an average of, I think, 5.2 out of 10.
On IMDb?
Let's see.
Fuck that site.
It doesn't say. It says Rotten Tomatoes, it was 29% of 58 critics' reviews with an average rating of 5.2. So yeah, Rotten Tomatoes, yeah.
I think that, sometimes I can understand that rating for that category or like that type of movie, but not specifically for this movie. I feel like sometimes, these movies are being done just to kind of be jarring and taboo and whatnot, but they don't have enough substance. But this one, I definitely think that there's a lot of substance to it. If you really strip down the, kind of look at the skeleton of it.
It seems that the people who were not favorable to the movie thought that it was narratively superficial.
Do you think it was superficial?
I don't think it was superficial.
Yeah. Me neither.
So, I don't know. Take that with a grain of salt.
Maybe they were superficial. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
So, yeah. So she decides she's going to testify against him. They go to the principal's office. It's a he said, she said situation. And then she's going to testify against him. And obviously that does not bode well for him. So the closing monologue goes like this. In the end, ultimately, I understood our mutual naivete. My trust, his arrogance, exposed us to the caprices of society and rendered us defeated, suddenly alone in separate camps. What will become of us? Will he measure himself an unwitting participant, falsely banished and beggared? No job, no wife, no forgiveness. Or will he be brave enough to accept his complicity in a way that is meaningful, in a way that changes him? as it has changed me. The answer evades me. I wanted to experience something I didn't understand. I reached for it and was made a fool by my own childish notions of love. But where was my error? Was it in the reaching or the wanting? Is this what it is to be an adult? The same exquisite longing of adolescence, but with a burden of constant accountability. No excuse is to be made for your choices, for they are yours alone. I cannot say whether or not I'm grateful for the experience, for the knowledge. The felicity of youth has been ripped from me like skin, and exposed as I am, sore and open as I am, I can feel it shape me into something new. Hero, villain, writer, grown, from the human ruins of a madman's love. So, yeah, powerful words.
Yeah. Speaking on the first half of that, it's hard to say. I think that, I think the fact that he starts writing at the end is testament to the fact that it did change him in a way that is, I wouldn't say positive, but I think maybe it was a little bit of personal growth. I don't think that he would just necessarily resign himself to, like, well, now my life is fucked, now, like, I'm just gonna, whatever, just drift along. I think that, I don't know, but I could see that happening too, so it's very hard to say. I don't know. What is your opinion on that?
Well, I think that everything's a process, right? But
yes. Well, yeah.
But what she kickstarted something here. She lighted the match and threw it into the fire, and you kind of, and that's the beautiful thing, that she ultimately, I do think, I mean, it could be just my INTJ point of view, or like a psychopathic point of view, whatever you want to call it, but I do think that ultimately she did him a favor, because
I agree.
He was in a place that he was brain dead. He was just
drifting. Yeah.
He was brain dead. He was dead. And he was biologically alive, but musically dead. Can I use that term? Like,
I get what you mean.
So what she did to him, this clash between them, has left a mark with him, and it's kind of, I don't know, if you're not a writer, then you're probably not going to get this, or you might not get this, but writers have to constantly get feedback and ideas, or else if nothing happens, if they don't create motion, then nothing changes, and you stay in one place, you're uninspired, you're
basically writing in an echo chamber at that point.
Yeah, and you're just stuck in the circle, and she broke the circle for him, but he was too cowardly in a way. But he's also, we should say this, he's more moralistic than her. So, and this is really this is another thing, but like difference between INFJs and INTJs. I feel like INTJs are more likely to color outside the lines. We're not as held back by morality. Yes, but we're just basically it sounds bad when you say it like that. But I feel like if we have a higher purpose, or like if we think that this is gonna serve the purpose, the goal, if it's gonna get us to where we need to go, then
look, I don't want to make a reference to The Secret History, but
right,
but
our boy Henry.
Yeah. Willing to commit a murder,
Yeah. So and with INFJs, it's just the fact that they are feelers. It's almost like this annoyingly, righteous anchor. And they also really want harmony is very important to them as well. They genuinely care about every person in the room's feelings. It's like, who gives a fuck?
I also have noticed that trait in unhealthy INFPs, where they get very self-righteous. I've known one in the past who was very, I don't know, it came across as very like, he was definitely like on his moral high horse, and it came across as very much like virtue signaling, where he would just, you know, I don't know, that guy was a mess. But yeah, I've seen that trait, like I said, in unhealthy INFPs too. It's that INFX.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's a thing. So, but so I bolded this question here in. So is he? She's basically asking, is he going to dare and reach out for the change and like really take that next step and evolve into something more? And that is also a very INTJ-ish thing to say, because I think that we live in a constant state of sink or swim, evolve or perish. You know, and we're always like, and it's almost, it's another contradiction, I feel like, because I feel like I don't do very well with change. Yeah. But at the same time, I understand that change is inevitable, that I have to, we have, not just me, like we have to adapt. Human race has to adapt.
I think it's on a scale with judging types, whether or not, or how adaptable you are to change. And I think we're on the side of the scale that leans more towards being accepting of change, whereas there are some other judging types that definitely fall harder, especially like if they are a sensor as well, that fall harder into that resistance to change.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So yeah, and back to what you said about Winnie. Cairo says, her closing words, I wanted to experience something I didn't understand. There's something very brave about saying something like that, especially when you look back at her actions. It seems like her scheme worked perfectly, right? You know, she made all the right moves, and the chips fell exactly where she wanted them to fall. But ultimately, like, she knew that she was going into the unknown in a way, because she knew that something had to happen. She needed to rattle the cage in a way that she'll have something to work with for her Yale assignment and just, you know. So, yeah, brave girl.
Yeah. That's, I think she does make, mention to, like, I think, does she actually directly say that? When he walks into her room at the very end of the last scene, and she's working on her Yale assignment? I believe that's what she's doing. It
was Winnie. It wasn't him, I think.
No. That's what I said. When Winnie walks in to Cairo's room at the end and she's working on her Yale assignment. She's standing
on the bed and reading it.
Yeah.
Her, her vilifying moment. But, yeah, I don't know. Is she a villain?
I don't think so. I think... here's the thing. Yes, she's 18. I get it. But there's also, you have to think, there's that teacher-student dynamic where he definitely, like you said, he also took advantage of her in a way too, for his own self-development. But
I mean, the way that so the relationship between them definitely spoke directly into his ego. At first, you have this young girl, she looks up to you, she is interested in writing, she's brilliant. She read your book, like, it's definitely a compliment.
Yeah. But also somebody who is not only a teacher, but this man's age should know very clearly and very well to not even touch these lines.
And Coach does tell him, the difference between you and I is that I know where the line is. You're incapable of recognizing it, so you cross it every time.
Yes, and this is a fully grown man who's in a position of power as a teacher.
Right.
There is the scene also where Winnie or Cairo or one of them sends Coach, like, because they were taking photos in her room, and very, like, kind of explicit photos, and he shuts it down immediately because he knows not to cross that line.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I wrote this down that I don't know if I would call her a villain, to be honest with you. I feel like
No.
I feel for her so much, and I identify with her so much that I think that she's very human.
Tomorrow in Chicago, there will be some summer
Classic.
Oh my God.
Last episode, she wasn't.
She's our
there.
special guest every episode.
Yeah, I know. So, I think that she made, the best of a not so great situation.
Yeah.
Sure, she drove them to that situation. Like, it was all by design, but ultimately, I do feel like a person's strength, how do I put this? Yeah, I guess I could call it a person's strength, or the strength of their personality is measured by how well they can navigate a difficult situation, or how they make the best out of it. And I would like to think that because she does leave him in a very difficult position, obviously, his world is seemingly falling apart, but at least he got back his writing.
And I said this at the beginning of the episode too, as much as you could debate whether or not she was a villain, what her intentions were exactly. I mean, we know them for the most part, but whatever you want to discuss, she's 18. She's not a fully developed, her personality, her brain is not fully developed yet.
Yeah.
And it's hard to villainize a character who is, at that point.
Yeah, and that brings me to my last point, and that is the danger in the changing Lolita narrative. So which is interesting because you did mention My Dark Vanessa. Yeah. So in Lolita, have you read the book?
Oh yeah, I actually reread it recently.
Yeah, so magnificent work of art, really. But so we have there the unreliable narrator. So Humbert, we can't trust a word he says, right?
Yeah.
And he, portrays her as this temptress. She, he can't. He's just drawn to her, and all these little things that she does, and she just seduces him, and he's got absolutely no responsibility whatsoever. He's just drawn to her, and he's just a moth to her flame, essentially. Zero responsibility as an adult.
Yeah.
And I feel like over the course of the years, right, we've had plenty of similar stories that completely rewrote that narrative. And what Nabokov is doing, he is giving the reader full responsibility, and he's like, look, this is what the character is saying, this is what the character is doing, this is the story the way that I chose to tell it, but what do you think? How do you feel about this? Do you think that Lolita was a temptress? Do you think that she was in control of the situation? Or maybe, just maybe, do you think that she is the victim, or that things aren't exactly the way that Humbert is describing them? But I do feel like, because when you say, oh, she's a Lolita nowadays, what instantly comes to mind, and this is what I was thinking before I read the novel as well, I think about this young femme fatale, and she's, seducing older men. She's got a thing for older men. She likes to, use them to get stuff out of them. I don't know, money, clothes, cigarettes, whatever. And she's in full control, and she is well aware of her charms. And that is not the case.
No, why are we taking responsibility off these predators in this case?
Yes, but what I'm saying is that the term Lolita has changed so much over because, I mean, if we're comparing Lolita to Miller's Girl, and obviously, it's heaven and earth, it's got nothing to do, with the girls in this situation. Completely, because she was Cairo was in complete control, and she knew exactly where she was doing and where she was headed and what she was doing with him every step of the way. But that is not the situation with Lolita. But
No.
nowadays, when people want to describe a character like Cairo, you know, oh, she's a Lolita temptress. And I think that that is a dangerous point, because that's not what Lolita was.
No.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
so the terminology is very important, because it's rewriting the narrative.
Absolutely.
But wrongly so. It's incorrect.
Just the narrative style of Lolita is just so, I mean, this has been said a million times, but it's absolutely genius.
I know, it's beautiful. And to think that it's not even his mother tongue, you know. He wrote
Yeah.
it, but he wrote it in English. It wasn't translated. He wrote it in English. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
But can you imagine if they published Lolita nowadays?
Yeah,
that
that would
shit
not.
would have never saw the light of day.
Yeah. Cool.
So,
Well, I
yeah.
think that about wraps it up, I think. Should we do our weekly recommendations?
Yes, we can.
I don't have much, again. A little bit.
Why?
I've been more into writing than reading the past week or so. I did reread Dakota Warren's poetry book.
Oh, I still want to get it.
Oh, you don't have it yet?
I don't, but
I don't know why I thought that you had already gotten it.
I don't know. It's fucking Amazon. Their shipping is so fucking expensive, and I can't. She's not selling it anywhere else.
No, I don't think so.
But I will get it, you know, at some point. But
Yeah.
what do you think about her stuff?
I really like it. It's a little bit... Oh, I don't know.
What?
I like it. It gives a little bit, maybe, Gen Z notes app poetry. A little, maybe, I don't want to say trite, but maybe a little immature at some points. But I actually really liked it. I just really like her writing style. Another book that a poetry book that I read, is, and I will fully admit that I read the synopsis. I mostly bought this book for the title and the little snippet on the back of the book. But it is "The World Keeps Ending and the World Goes On" by Franny Choi. And this poetry book I'm in the middle of right now, and I actually really enjoy it. It's very the descriptions of things are very visceral, and I really enjoy that in poetry. So both of these books, very good. Yeah.
Interesting.
I would recommend both of them.
All right. Well, so I went into a bookstore today because I was running errands, and it was in a different city, so it's always exciting. But
The siren song of the bookstore.
I know, it's used. Secondhand bookstores are just. I just love them because you walk in and the possibilities, you know. But so I bought To the Lighthouse and The Waves by Virginia Woolf.
Ooh.
I only read one book from her so far, Mrs. Dalloway, and I really liked it. I thought it was brilliant. She's such a good writer. But I have a few things, a few titles on the shelf. Now, this is when you know that you are overbuying books. So I bought these two books, and then I go back home and I already have them both on my shelf. But it's a good thing that I bought them, because the editions that I have, I just hate them. So I'll replace them, because these ones were really pretty. I also got Tender is the Night by Fitzgerald, the guy that wrote Gatsby, the Great Gatsby, and Phantom of the Opera, which I've never read, but I'm really interested in reading. I feel like it would be a good winter read, so I might save it for that.
Yeah, the movie is definitely a very good winter movie. I can imagine the book is it fits the same.
Yeah, okay. But if I had to recommend something, that I would recommend the book that I'm reading right now. It's called Mad Love by Andre Breton. And oh my goodness, do you know this author?
I actually, I saw something of his that I put on my to read list, and I don't remember. I just the name, the author's name.
I posted a picture, so maybe, and I also, on my Goodreads, so maybe you saw it there and then you added it.
Possible. Let me look. But anyway.
Oh my goodness, it's so. I have no words for this. First of all, it's a weird book because it's written. I mean, some of it is very poetic, but it's not written as poems. It's written as like a compilation of essays. I don't know what to call it, but I have to read you some stuff. I have to read you like a couple of quotes because the writing is just spectacular. So, let me find something.
So it was actually not that book that I had put on my to read list. It was actually a different one.
What's its name?
I think is it Nadia? Nadia? I think it's Nadia.
Okay, I will have to check it out because seriously, his writing. Listen to this. Behind ourselves, we must not let the paths of desire become overgrown. Nothing retains less of desire in art, in science, than this will to industry, booty, possession. Yeah, just let me find just one more thing. It's just, it's so good.
Are you also somebody who writes down quotes or like tabs quotes in books that you like?
I do tab them.
I do that too, yeah.
It's just, but I had to start loving again, not just to keep on living. The two instincts in that very way have never been more exalted than the way they can be seen under the ultramaterial disguise of figures 7 and 8, a disguise letting them try me out, measure their strength on me blow by blow. It's just it's so good, and it talks about love, and it's just I'm not really the sort of person who likes cliche or like overly romantic whatever type of reads, unless I choose to read absolute trash spicy romance books, but that is not the situation. Like this is so different and so brilliant, and if you read it when you're in love, oh my god, it's incredible. I
don't read typically I don't read a lot of like romance, not even necessarily romance books, but like things with the whenever I think romance books, I think like you said, like spicy trash. But I typically don't really read a lot of romance. I did, however, I keep seeing things online about White Nights by Dostoevsky, and I think I might have to read that one because
I want to read it as well. It's a pretty short read.
It is, yeah, it's very short.
Maybe we should read it together and then discuss it because I love me some Dostoevsky.
Yeah, for sure.
Alrighty, so that was it, and we were talking about maybe mentioning what pissed me off today, what pissed me off this week. So I'm just going to leave you with that. When I was at the bookstore, there were tons and tons of kids outside screaming their lungs out.
Ugh.
And I wanted to close the door. I wanted to go out and fucking, punch them in the face or shut them up. And it's just, why?
I'm glad you didn't let the intrusive thoughts win.
I know, because I could have killed them. But
children.
I know, that poor, imagine me. I was there for like less than an hour, but think about the poor bookseller.
Yeah, and when you're in a place like a bookstore and you just want to focus on what you're looking at and reading and just you want some quiet and calm and time to think.
It's a sacred place. Have some respect.
It is.
All right.
What pissed me off this week? Well, this isn't something that just pissed me off this week. It's something that pisses me off a lot. Funny enough, I actually, so I take French lessons, and my tutor this week, somehow we got, she asked me in French, like, how can I tell when I see a tourist in my city? And it's because every time, I'm a very fast walker, and so when I'm on my way from the train to my work, every time there's a tourist, I can always tell it's a tourist because they stand right in the middle of the sidewalk.
Oh my god, I hate when people do that.
hold their phones up to take photos of the skyscrapers. And it's like, yes, I get it. Like, we're in a big city. This is probably, like, new for you. But just maybe take a step off from the middle of the fucking sidewalk so people don't have to, like, dodge around you.
I hate that so much. It's like, it's so inconsiderate. Someone is in a hurry here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I'm not even, like, I show up for work, like, a half an hour early, but, like, I'm not even in a hurry. But I'm on, when I'm walking to work, you would think I'm on a mission, because I'm a fast walker. And I don't want to have to, like, especially if they have children, too. Like, I don't want to be tripping over your children. Like, please, just take a step to the side.
But I just feel like if the situation was in reverse, then I would be standing someplace that doesn't disturb the traffic of people, you know? It's like basic self-awareness, of like the awareness of the people around you.
Yeah, if you just take 2 steps, like, to the curb, then people have no problem walking there.
And don't be a selfish prick, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
That pisses me off a lot as well. I agree.
Yeah. Well, okay. We'll end on that note then, I guess.
Yeah, 81 minutes.
Ooh, wow.
Alrighty, so thank you for listening, and hopefully you watched the movie and liked it.
And I'm not sure what our next week topic is going to be yet, but
I know. Maybe we could do the MBTI questionnaire because...
Oh, yeah. This is slowly turning into an MBTI podcast and not a Dark Academia podcast.
I mean, let's try to keep a good balance.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so thank you for tuning in, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.